Commander Veltara stood in the dim blue light of the observation deck, her 4 eyes fixed on the small planet floating in the darkness of space. Earth looked so peaceful from here, like a tiny blue jewel spinning slowly in the void. But the reports coming from the monitoring stations told a different story. "Commander," said Officer Nixholm, approaching with a data tablet clutched in his 3-fingered hands. "The readings from the 3rd planet are getting worse. Primitives have learned to split atoms now. The radio signals are getting stronger. Every day." Veltora's mandibles clicked together, making a sound like stones grinding. She had been watching this planet for over 200 years, and the creatures living on it never stopped surprising her. When she first started monitoring them, they were still using animals to pull their carts and fighting with metal swords. Now they were launching rockets into space and creating weapons that could destroy entire cities. "Show me the latest data," she commanded. The holographic display lit up, showing Earth in perfect detail. Red dots marked the locations of nuclear weapons tests. Yellow lines traced the paths of primitive spacecraft. Green clusters showed the densest areas of radio transmissions. The planet looked like it was covered in a web of energy and activity. "Look at this." Nixholm pointed to a section of the display. In just 50 years, they went from their first powered flight to putting objects in orbit around their planet. Most species take at least 500 years to make that jump. Veltara studied the data with growing concern. The Kethmer Collective had been watching over the galaxy for thousands of years. They had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. Some grew slowly and peacefully, eventually joining the greater galactic community. Others burned bright and fast, destroying themselves with their own weapons or poisoning their worlds with pollution. But these humans were different. They were advancing faster than any species the Kethmer had ever observed. And they were doing it while constantly fighting each other. "Their wars are getting more dangerous," Nixholm continued. "They have enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire planet several times over, and they keep building more." The observation chamber was quiet except for the soft humming of the monitoring equipment. Around them, dozens of screens showed other worlds under Kethmer surveillance. Some showed peaceful farming communities. Others displayed early industrial civilizations. A few monitored the ruins of planets where species had destroyed themselves. "The Council is talking about intervention," Nixholm said quietly. "Some of the senior observers think we should make contact before they become a threat to the galaxy." Veltara's eyes narrowed. The Kethmer had strict rules about contact with primitive species. They were watchers, not participants. They observed, recorded, and learned, but they did not interfere. It was the foundation of their civilization. "And what do you think, officer?" she asked. Nixholm hesitated before answering. "I think they're dangerous, Commander. But they're also remarkable. Look at their art, their music, their stories. They dream of exploring the stars, of meeting other species, of finding peace. But they also dream of conquest and war." Veltara turned back to the display showing Earth. She could see the lights of their cities. Tiny pinpricks of illumination scattered across the continents. Billions of these creatures lived down there, each one thinking and feeling and dreaming. They had no idea that alien eyes were watching them from the darkness of space. "They're like children playing with fire," she said, curious and creative, but also reckless and violent. They could burn down the entire galaxy if they ever learned to travel between the stars. The Kethmer had seen it before. Species that advanced too quickly, that gained powerful technology before they learned wisdom. The galaxy was full of dead worlds, silent monuments to civilizations that had reached too far too fast. But there was something about these humans that made Veltara pause. Yes, they were violent. Yes, they were dangerous. But they were also capable of incredible beauty and compassion. Their music could move her to tears. Their stories spoke of hope and sacrifice and love. Their art captured emotions she didn't even know existed. Maintain the watch protocol, she finally decided. Shh. Double the monitoring frequency. I want reports every day, not every week. And alert me immediately if they achieve faster than light. Travel, or make any attempt to leave their solar system. Nixholm nodded and began entering the new orders into his tablet. "What about the Council's recommendation for intervention?" "Tell them we need more time to assess the situation." These creatures are evolving too quickly for us to make hasty decisions. If we're going to act, we need to be certain of the consequences." As her subordinate left the observation deck, Veltara remained standing before the display. Earth continued its slow rotation, unaware of the alien eyes watching from the darkness. The humans down there were probably looking up at the stars right now, wondering if they were alone in the universe. They had no idea that their cosmic childhood was being carefully observed, recorded, and judged by beings they couldn't even imagine. And they had no idea that their future might depend on the decisions being made in the cold silence of space. The blue marble spun on. Beautiful and dangerous, carrying its cargo of dreamers and warriors toward an uncertain destiny. Elder Observer. Veltara walked slowly through the corridors of the monitoring station, her steps heavy with the weight of 50 years of service. Her once smooth skin now bore the pale scars that marked a lifetime of deep space duty. And her 4 eyes had grown dim from staring at countless screens and star charts. She had watched civilizations rise and fall, had seen species take their first steps into space or destroy themselves with their own weapons. But nothing had prepared her for what she found when she approached the Earth monitoring station that day. Junior Observer Kalanis was standing frozen at his console, his 3-fingered hands shaking as he adjusted the sensor controls again and again. The young officer had only been assigned to the Earthwatch 6 months ago. He was fresh from the academy and eager to observe the violent species that had captured so much attention from the collective. "What's wrong, Observer?" Veltara asked, though something in the air already told her the answer would disturb her. "Elder I cannot find them," Kalanis whispered, his voice barely audible above the humming of the machines. "The humans, they're gone." Veltara felt her blood grow cold. She moved to the primary observation screen and activated the long-range sensors herself. The blue planet appeared on the display, spinning peacefully in the void just as it had for billions of years. But something was terribly wrong. The space around Earth was empty. Completely empty. 50 years ago. When Veltara had last personally overseen the monitoring of this world, the region had been filled with activity. Radio signals had buzzed through space like angry insects. Primitive satellites had cluttered the orbital paths. Nuclear signatures had flared from weapons tests and power plants. The electromagnetic spectrum had been a chaos of human activity, growing stronger every year. Now, there was nothing. Sensors showed only the natural background radiation of space. The same quiet signals that had existed before intelligent life had ever evolved on the planet below. "Run a full spectrum analysis," Veltara ordered, her voice sharp with disbelief. "Check every frequency, every energy signature. They must be there somewhere." Kalanis worked frantically at his console, his movements becoming more desperate with each passing minute. "I've checked everything, Elder. Radio waves, microwave transmissions, nuclear signatures, thermal readings, even primitive rocket exhaust. There's nothing. It's like they never existed." But that was impossible. Veltara had watched the humans for 200 years. She had seen their cities grow from small settlements to massive sprawls of concrete and steel. She had monitored their first tentative steps into space, their moon landings, their space stations. A civilization didn't just disappear overnight. "Show me the surface," she commanded. The image on the screen zoomed in, revealing the continents in perfect detail. And there, scattered across the landmasses, were the cities. New York, London, Tokyo, Beijing, all the great centers of human civilization were still visible, but they were dark. No lights twinkled in the streets, no vehicles moved on the highways, no aircraft crossed the skies. The cities looked like monuments to a dead civilization, preserved but lifeless. "When did it happen?" Veltara asked, though she dreaded the answer. Kalanis brought up the historical data, his hands still trembling. "According to our records, all human transmissions stopped exactly 47 years. 3 months and 16 days ago. At 14:23. Galactic Standard Time." Veltara stared at the time stamp. That was impossible. Civilizations didn't end with such precision. When species destroyed themselves, it happened gradually. Wars lasted for years. Environmental collapse took decades. plague spread slowly across continents. But the humans had simply ... stopped. "What was the last transmission we recorded?" she asked. Kalanis pulled up the file. It was a simple radio broadcast, the kind the humans had been sending into space. For decades, a message of greeting in multiple languages, accompanied by mathematical concepts and images of their planet. Nothing unusual, nothing that suggested imminent disaster. And then Veltara pressed, and then silence. Complete, total silence, as if someone had turned off a switch. Veltara walked to the viewing port and stared out at the blue world below. It looked so peaceful, so normal. White clouds swirled through the atmosphere. The ice caps gleamed at the poles. The ocean sparkled with reflected starlight, but no signals came from its surface. "Perhaps they finally succeeded in destroying themselves," she said, though the words felt wrong in her mouth. They had enough. Nuclear weapons to sterilize their entire planet. "But there's no radiation," Elder Kalanis protested. "No signs of nuclear war, no environmental damage. The planet looks exactly as it did 50 years ago, healthier even. The atmospheric pollution has cleared up significantly." That was the detail that bothered Veltara most. If the humans had destroyed themselves through war or environmental collapse, there should be evidence. Radiation signatures, chemical contamination, massive fires, something. Instead, the planet looked cleaner than it had in centuries. Maybe they evolved beyond the need for technology, Kalanis suggested hopefully. Maybe they found peace and decided to live simply. Veltara's mandibles clicked in disagreement. No species goes from space travel back to primitive living, not voluntarily, and certainly not all at once. She studied the data again, searching for any clue, any hint of what might have happened. The silence wasn't natural. It was too complete, too sudden. It felt deliberate, as if the humans had made a conscious decision to stop broadcasting to the universe. "Log it in the records," she finally ordered, though every instinct told her she was making a mistake. "Species 7834C. Status unknown. Possibly extinct, 'cause undetermined." As Kalanis began typing the report, Veltara continued staring at Earth. Somewhere in her mind, a small voice whispered that they were missing something important. The silence didn't scream of death, it whispered of secrets. Captain Mordix was enjoying a quiet meal in his quarters. When the emergency alert pierced through the ship's gentle humming, the red lights flashed across the walls of the Eternal Vigilance, and his communication officer's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, to the bridge immediately. We have a distress signal from Research Station Gamma 7. Mordix dropped his meal and rushed to the command center. Research Station Gamma 7 was one of the most remote facilities in Kethmer space. Positioned at the very edge of the galaxy, where dead solar systems drifted in eternal darkness. It was a lonely posting, usually staffed by scientists studying the remains of ancient civilizations. "What's the nature of the distress signal?" he asked as he took his command chair. Navigation Officer Vexara looked up from her console, her face pale with worry. "That's just it, Captain. The signal is automated. It's been broadcasting the same emergency code for 6 hours, but no one is responding to our communications." The Eternal Vigilance changed course immediately, its engines pushing the ship toward the distant station. The journey took 2 days, and with each passing hour, the crew grew more anxious. Research Station Gamma 7 was home to 43 scientists and support staff. It was impossible for all of them to simply disappear when they finally arrived. Captain Mordix stared at the station through the main viewing screen. It looked perfectly normal. The lights were on, the docking bay was open, and all the external systems appeared to be functioning correctly. But something felt wrong. "Life support is active," reported the science officer. "Artificial gravity is working. All power systems are operating at full capacity. But I'm not detecting any life signs." Docked with the station and formed an exploration team. Captain Mordix led the way, his weapon ready, though he couldn't imagine what threat they might face. The station's corridors were clean and well lit. The air recycling systems hummed softly. Everything was exactly as it should be, except for the complete absence of people. Captain Nexera called from the main computer terminal. You need to see this. The station's logs showed 3 weeks of perfectly normal activity. Scientists had been studying the remains of an ancient ESL civilization in a nearby dead system. They had been excited about some unusual energy readings, but nothing that seemed dangerous. The daily reports showed routine maintenance, successful experiments, and even birthday celebrations for 2 of the crew members. Then, 3 days ago, the entries simply stopped. Look at this, Nexera said, pointing to the final log entry. It was from Dr. Kethanel, the station's chief scientist. The message was brief and disturbing. They're not extinct. They're everywhere. Who's not extinct? Captain Mordox asked, though he already suspected the answer would chill him. They searched the entire station, but found no signs of struggle. No evidence of evacuation, no clues about where the crew had gone. Personal belongings were still in their rooms. Half-finished meals sat on tables in the cafeteria. A book lay open on someone's desk, as if the reader had just stepped away for a moment. It was as if 43 people had simply vanished into thin air. But the Eternal Vigilance was not the only ship experiencing strange events. Within days of their return from Research Station Gamma 7, reports began flooding in from across Kethmer space. Ships were losing navigation for minutes at a time, their instruments showing readings that made no sense before suddenly returning. 2 Normal Commander Zolthik of the 3rd Fleet was the first to report the ghost contacts. Her battle group was conducting routine patrols near the Andorian sector when her sensors began detecting phantom vessels shadowing her formation. Tactical, what do you make of these contacts? She asked her weapons officer. Don't know, Commander. They appear on our sensors as solid objects, but they don't match any known ship designs. They're not broadcasting any identification signals, and they don't respond to our hails. Commander Zolthik watched the tactical display with growing unease. The phantom vessels moved in perfect formation with her fleet, maintaining exact distances and speeds. When she ordered her ships to change course, the ghost contacts changed course as well. When she increased speed, they increased speed. Lock weapons on the lead contact, she ordered. Weapons locked, Commander. Fire a warning shot across their bow. The energy beam lanced out into space, heading directly for the phantom vessel. But the moment the weapon fired, the contact vanished from their sensors. All of them disappeared at once, as if they had never existed. What just happened? Zolthik demanded. I don't know, Commander. They're gone. All sensor readings show empty space. Similar reports came from trading vessels, exploration ships, and even military patrols. Equipment would malfunction for no apparent reason, then repair itself. Communication arrays would experience selective failures, blocking certain frequencies while leaving others untouched. Most disturbing of all were the sightings of structures that shouldn't exist.
Ow.
Glimpses of massive constructions in empty space that vanished the moment anyone tried to get a closer look. The Kethmer had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Through careful observation and superior technology, they had always been the Watchers, the ones who saw without being seen. But now something was watching them, and they didn't understand the rules of this new game. Fear began to spread through the collective. Their perfect order was crumbling, and they didn't know why. The galaxy suddenly felt much larger and more dangerous than it had before. Full of invisible threats that could strike at any moment, the Watchers had become the watched, and they didn't like it at all. Elder Observer, Baltara was reviewing the daily reports when every screen in the monitoring station suddenly flickered and went black. Then, without warning, they all lit up at once, showing the same image across every display in the facility. The emergency alarm should have been screaming. Security protocols should have locked down the entire station. But somehow this transmission had bypassed every defense the Kethmer had built over thousands of years of technological advancement. What appeared on the screens made Baltara's 4 eyes widen in shock. It was a human face. The man looked ordinary by human standards, average. Height, dark hair, wearing simple clothes that suggested he worked in some kind of laboratory. But his eyes held a depth of knowledge that seemed impossible for a member of what the Kethmer had considered a primitive species. To our observers in the sky, the human said, speaking perfect Kethmer with an accent that suggested he had studied their language for many years. I am Dr. Minho Kim, Earth's final transmission officer. If you're hearing this message, it means we have decided it's time to introduce ourselves properly. Veltara felt her blood turn to ice. This was impossible. The humans had been extinct. For nearly 50 years, she had seen the evidence herself: the silent planet, the dark cities, the complete absence of any technological activity. We know you've been watching us, Dr. Kim continued, his voice calm and patient. We've been watching you too. Did you think we couldn't see your ships hiding in the darkness? Couldn't detect your scanning beams? We've been learning from you, growing beyond what you thought possible. Behind Dr. Kim, the laboratory seemed to shift and change. The walls appeared to bend and twist, revealing glimpses of structures that shouldn't exist. Veltara saw what looked like cities floating in empty space, connected by bridges of light that curved through dimensions her mind couldn't understand. "Commander, are you seeing this?" whispered Junior, Observer Kalanis from across the room. His voice was shaking. Veltara couldn't answer. She was too stunned by what she was witnessing. The transmission was being broadcast simultaneously across every Kethmer world, station, and ship in the galaxy. Billions of her people were watching this impossible message at the same time. We didn't disappear, Dr. Kim explained, his image, now showing glimpses of technologies that operated beyond anything that Kethmer had ever imagined. We transcended. While you were looking for radio signals and nuclear signatures, we were learning to exist in the spaces between spaces. The screen showed images that hurt to look at directly, cities that existed in folded space, where buildings stretched through multiple dimensions. Vessels that traveled not through normal space, but through layers of reality that the Kethmer had never known existed. You see, we realized something that you never did, Dr. Kim continued. You watched us for centuries, cataloging our progress, measuring our advancement by your own standards. But you were looking for the wrong things. The image shifted to show what Earth had looked like 50 years ago, covered in lights, buzzing with radio signals, filled with primitive spacecraft. Then it changed to show what Earth looked like now, appearing empty and silent to Kethmer sensors. We learned too. Move beyond the need for crude electromagnetic transmissions, Dr. Kim explained. We developed quantum consciousness transfer, allowing our minds to exist independent of our physical bodies. We mastered dimensional manipulation, building our civilization in layers of reality you cannot see. Veltara watched in growing horror. As the truth became clear, humanity hadn't destroyed itself. They had evolved beyond the Kethmer's ability to detect them. While the aliens had been watching for signs of conventional technology, humans had transcended into something completely different. We've been living all around you, Dr. Kim said, image now showing the vast network of human consciousness that permeated the galaxy. In the quantum foam between atoms, in the folded spaces between dimensions, in the dark matter that your scientists can measure but never understand. The revelation struck the Kethmer like a physical blow. Their entire understanding of the universe was crumbling. They'd thought themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy, the wise observers who watched over lesser civilizations. But they had been completely blind to humanity's true achievement. We've been watching you struggle with your ghost contacts and system failures, Dr. Kim continued, and Veltara realized with growing dread that the humans were responsible for all the strange events plaguing Kethmer space. We've been trying to decide whether to reveal ourselves to you. The screen showed images of Kethmar ships experiencing navigation failures, of phantom contacts appearing and disappearing, of Research Station Game 7 standing empty. All of it had been caused by beings the Kethmar couldn't even detect. We're not your enemies, Dr. Kim said, his expression becoming more serious. But we're not your subjects either. We've grown beyond your ability to catalog and control. We exist in spaces you cannot reach, using technologies you cannot comprehend. As the transmission continued, Veltara realized that everything the Kethmer believed about themselves was wrong. They weren't the galaxy's guardians. They weren't the most advanced species in the cosmos. They were just another civilization. As limited and blind as any other, the humans had become something entirely new, something that existed beyond the physical laws the Kethmer understood. and they had been watching their former observers with the same patient interest the Kethmer had once shown them. The watchers had become the watched, and the watched had become something unimaginable. Elder observer Veltara watched in stunned silence as Dr. Minho Kim's message continued. The human's face remained calm and patient, but his words were reshaping everything the Kethmer believed about themselves and their place in the galaxy. "You called yourselves shepherds," Dr. Kim said, his image now showing something that made Veltara's mind struggle to understand. Behind him, she could see a vast network of light and energy that seemed to stretch across the entire galaxy. It pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, connecting distant stars and worlds in ways that defied every law of physics she knew. "But you only watched," the human continued. "We chose to act." The screen changed to show a Kethmer exploration vessel. The Star Runner, navigating through what appeared to be empty space. Veltara recognized the ship from recent reports. It had been mapping new star systems in the Outer Rim territories. The captain had praised his crew's excellent navigation skills in his latest transmission, but now she could see the truth. The Star Runner wasn't navigating on its own. Invisible forces were gently guiding it away from dangerous regions, steering it clear of cosmic storms and gravitational anomalies that the ship's sensors couldn't detect. The crew had no idea they were being protected by beings they couldn't even see. "Every ship that travels safely through our space does so because we guide it," Dr. Kim explained. "Every colony that thrives does so because we tend the cosmic storms you cannot see." Veltara felt her legs grow weak. She sank into her chair, watching as the transmission showed her one impossible truth after another. The Kethmire had always prided themselves on their superior technology and careful planning. Their colonies were successful because they chose the best locations and used the most advanced terraforming techniques, and their ships navigated dangerous space because their crews were skilled and their computers were precise. But it was all a lie. Humanity had been protecting them for decades. "Your collective endures because we have made it our responsibility to ensure it does," Dr. Kim continued. "We learned from your example, then surpassed it. True shepherds don't just observe, they protect." The screen now showed images from across Kethmer space. Colony worlds that had thrived despite being established in regions that should have been uninhabitable. Trading routes that had remained safe despite passing through areas known for dangerous cosmic phenomena. Military fleets that had avoided disasters they never knew were coming. In every case, invisible hands had been guiding and protecting them. The ghost contacts that had terrified Kethmer captains were actually human guardians, watching over their former observers with the same patient care that Kethmer had once shown primitive civilizations. "Do you remember Research Station Game 7? Dr. Kim asked, and Veltara's blood ran cold. The station where 43 scientists simply vanished? The screen showed the empty research station, its corridors clean and well-lit, but completely deserted. Then the image shifted, showing the same station but from a different perspective. Now Veltara could see the truth. The station hadn't been abandoned. It had been evacuated just hours before a massive solar flare from the nearby dead star would have killed everyone aboard. "We moved them to safety," Dr. Kim explained. "They're alive and well, though they don't remember the transition. We've learned to edit memories when necessary, to prevent panic and confusion." They believed they were transferred to a new research facility. In their minds, it was a routine reassignment. Veltara thought of all the strange reports that had been flooding in from across the galaxy. Ships experiencing system failures that prevented them from entering dangerous regions. Communication arrays that blocked certain frequencies just before. Harmful energy bursts. Navigation computers that mysteriously rerouted vessels away from cosmic hazards. It hadn't been random equipment failures. It had been humanity's way of protecting a species that didn't even know they needed protection. "We've been watching you struggle with questions about us," Dr. Kim said, his expression becoming more serious. "Trying to understand what happened to the violent primitive species you once observed. The truth is, we grew up. We learned that true power isn't about domination or control. It's about responsibility." The transmission showed images of the galaxy as the Kethmer had never seen it before. Vast networks of energy connected every star system, every planet, every moon. Cosmic storms raged in the spaces between worlds, threatening to destroy anything caught in their path. Ancient machines from long-dead civilizations continued their mysterious work in the darkness, and moving through it all, barely visible even now, were the humans. They had become something beyond physical form, existing as pure consciousness that could manipulate matter and energy at the quantum level. They were gardeners tending a cosmic garden, protecting and nurturing not just the Kethmer, but thousands of other species across the galaxy. "We offer partnership, not conquest," Dr. Kim concluded. "A chance for you to truly understand what it means to be guardians rather than mere observers.
Oh.
The galaxy is vast, and there are threats you cannot imagine, but together we can face them." Transmission ended, leaving the monitoring station in complete silence. Veltara stared at the blank screen, her mind reeling from everything she had learned. The Kethmer had thought themselves the galaxy's shepherds, but they had been nothing more than children playing at being adults. The real shepherds had been invisible, working quietly to protect and guide not just the Kethmer but countless other species throughout the galaxy. They had grown beyond the need for physical form, beyond the limitations of conventional technology, beyond the petty concerns of power and control. And now they were offering to teach the Kethmer how to become true guardians of the galaxy. The question was, were the Kethmer ready to learn?